Hey Changemaker! Welcome to Learning for Good, the only podcast that teaches nonprofit leaders how to leverage training to drive performance, improve capacity, and fuel their mission impact. Do you ever feel like your nonprofit is growing, but your people just aren't keeping up? Or like you're fixing the same problems over and over? Do you wonder how to build confident, capable staff who know how to lead, not just execute? If we haven't met yet, I'm Heather, and I know how hard it can feel to get people to do what's expected of them. Trust me, I have 3 kids. I've tried telling people what to do and how. I've tried the traditional training approaches, and I realized that just doesn't work. And that's when I started researching what does work. Now, I help mission-driven leaders use learning to drive performance, build capacity, and make change that lasts. And I'm sharing it all on this podcast. So block your calendar, turn off your Teams or Slack chat, and let's dive in. It's Learning for Good. I want you to try to envision a world before the telephone. Every message had to be sent through the mail. There was no Amazon Prime 2-day shipping. The telephone revolutionized the way we work and the way we socialize. And now, I think it's 150 years later, something like that, we can't imagine the world before the phone. And technology continues to evolve. At this point, I actually rarely use the phone part of my phone, right? I use Zoom or Teams for meetings. I text friends and family. I use Slack or email to check in with other consultants. But the technology that started this new way of communication, it changed the world. And AI is doing the same. If we aren't thinking about how we can use AI, we will fall behind. And I personally don't think AI will totally replace learning and development, but it's definitely going to revolutionize the way we work. So today I call him an early adopter. So today I have an early adopter on the podcast, nonprofit CEO Jorge Perez. Jorge is using AI. He's challenging his teams to use AI. And I know that we will learn a lot from hearing him talk about it. But before we jump in, I do want to remind you about our upcoming Learning for Good Summit. This summit is an extension of the podcast. It's a live virtual conference for nonprofit and association learning leaders. Our next summit kicks off April 27th, and it's focused on leading learning that sticks. With sessions across 5 days, you'll explore the mindset shifts, decision frameworks, and execution systems that separate busy training teams from trusted learning leaders. From tech decisions like AI to measurement, from strategy to sustainable execution, this event will help you think more clearly, act more intentionally, and lead learning that actually drives change. If you're tired of being pulled into the training intake chaos or pressured to just train, just get it done, or asked to prove impact without clarity, this week will give you the tools and perspective to respond differently. I personally can't wait, and I hope to see you there. But speaking of big learning decisions, AI is a big one. And I know Jorge will leave us thinking differently about our decision to use AI. Let's dive in. It's Learning for Good. Jorge Perez is a visionary leader, storyteller, and advocate for meaningful community growth. His passion lies in creating spaces where people achieve goals, connect deeply, and experience belonging. As president and CEO of the YMCA of Greater Cincinnati, Jorge draws on decades of experience leading organizations across the U.S., from Dallas to Indianapolis. Known for his innovative leadership, strategic thinking, and ability to forge powerful community partnerships, he has become a recognized force in the nonprofit sector. Jorge's leadership extends nationally, serving organizations like YMCA of the USA, the Hispanic Latino Leadership Network, and the After School Alliance. His focus on leadership development and multicultural inclusion reflects his commitment to creating equitable, vibrant communities. Originally from Texas, Jorge now calls Cincinnati home with his wife, Amy. With degrees in education, Christian education, and business administration, he exemplifies the importance of lifelong learning. Jorge believes true leadership means empowering others to thrive. He invites you to join him and the YMCA in building a future where every person finds achievement, relationships, and belonging. Jorge, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Heather. Looking forward to it.
I am excited about this. Jorge and I go back 14 years. It's been a while, and I have so much respect for you as a leader, and I'm excited to just dig in with you today and hear what you're doing with AI. I know every time we talk, you're doing something new, trying something new, testing something, and trying to find new ways to use it. And so I know that everyone here, everyone who's listening, will walk away with some new idea from our conversation.
I sure hope so. I mean, the world, as you described it earlier, is really shifting. And my hope is that maybe I can provide some practical examples or things individuals might consider.
Absolutely. I know that you will. So, Jorge, before we get into our AI focused conversation, I would love to hear a little bit about your career journey in your own words. I think it's one thing to read a bio and something completely different to hear how your tapestry came together. So, do you mind telling us a little bit about your career?
Yeah, absolutely. So every leader, and particularly at the YMCA, we all come with a particular interest. Some of us like the water, and so we're aquatic people, and some of us like fitness, and we're fitness people, and others love to be outdoors, and so we're camp people. Mine's urban inner city work. That's my passion. It's where I spend as much time as I possibly can, even in my non-Y hours. And so that's where I started. I remember tracking a group of sixth graders all the way into college. These are first generation college students. And then did that work even as I entered the YMCA. That was my area of expertise in that space. I think you and I met when I was doing a lot of work in closing the achievement gap. And so part of the reason I'm driven is because it's part of my own story. I am a first generation college student, first generation American. And it's just really, really important to me to give people, young people, an opportunity to really advance. And it's what I spend a lot of my time and energy doing. So I've held all sorts of jobs along the way, always focus on this. So whether it's driving a van with kids to Six Flags or leading a national effort to try to close an achievement gap, I still feel sometimes like I'm driving that van.
It's a good place to start, grabbing a van.
Mm.
So, I know that we've had several conversations about AI prior to this episode. And I know that you spend a lot of time thinking about AI. You've always been, I would say, an early adopter of tech. So, at a high level, how do you see AI changing the way nonprofit organizations operate? And then, where do you see learning fitting into that picture?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I think it may help if I explain why that early adoption takes place. Because I think it's always strange when I'm asked into these forums and I'm the oldest person on the panel, right? Who's this 60-year-old that's talking about AI? Technology has always been an important part of my career. I've been an early adopter of technology the entire time. In fact, my MBA is in e-commerce and nonprofit management. So I knew that something was happening in the world and I needed to better understand it. When AI came along, I remember hearing it being described on a Sunday morning news show as I was getting ready for church. And my first thought was, it finally arrived. It's finally here. Because unlike all the other tools that we have ever taken on in the history of mankind, where we get a new tool that we learn to use to accomplish something, whether it's digging a hole or writing a letter, those tools have always been under our 100% control. For the first time, that shovel is talking back and saying, do you want me to dig the hole for you? In fact, I'll take the first stab and I can advise you where to best place the hole for that tree. And that's what AI represents for me. So when I think about what impact it can have on nonprofits, is for those nonprofits that have been needing more staff, and I can't think of one that would say, I don't need any staff. You can now have them. You can have 16, you can have 50. And what it's going to do to the learning and education piece of the nonprofit world is where we used to have to go to seminars and try to remember everything that we are listening, take a lot of notes, come back to our offices with a 3-ring binder. You don't need to do that anymore. Your AIs will pick up all of that information. There are AIs right now that will do that from your phones, or the presenters themselves will spend only half of their time teaching you about whatever the topic is, and the other half teaching you how to use the AI that they will supply for you, that you'll take with you and talk with you. We're doing this right now where our team's going through a leadership development initiative. I picked the organization because of their willingness to create an AI agent that will follow our team along. And I've already have had several conversations with the AI, helping me interpret some results of a personality profile. And I uploaded our strategic plan and say, what can you tell me now if you're looking at these two things? I can't do that. I couldn't have done that before, but this is the world we live in today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about all the tools and resources that I've created over the past 20 years, and tools and resources are an important part of making sure that learning transfers out of the classroom into the job. And there's probably still a place for that to some degree, but some of those tools and resources will end up being AI tools and resources at this point. And so it definitely shifts how we think about what we're designing and how we're designing it. So I'm curious, you mentioned the leadership development initiative that you have going on. What are some ways that you all are using AI to support learning, leadership development, or just generally staff capability within your organization?
Well, part of it is in ensuring that that mind shift is taking place. One, I mean, we've covered a lot of ground already, and it's worth going back and saying it's a significant mind shift from going to, I know how to use a shovel, to now the shovel is going to do the work for me. Because what I'm finding is a lot of individuals are using AI, but they're using it as another version of the old things they were doing. Help me draft a better email. Help me review this document. Not moving beyond just using the tool for tool's sake. Not understanding that the AIs can do so much more than that. So part of it is helping individuals understand what it can do, demonstrating that it can do this or it can do that. And I'm going to be very, very specific. So we have a newsletter that we need to create. We do that every month. It's a task. It's somebody's job and nobody wants it. And so the old way is to just simply teach somebody, get them to a class, give them the function and say, look, it's your job. I'm really sorry that you got this job. It's your job. Or you can go to a platform, instruct the platform to create a system for you. And now you have a place online where people can submit a story. It will act as an editor. So you, even if you have misspelled words or pieces of the story that are inconsistent, or your story is just way too long, that's okay. The editor, who's an AI, will fix all that. And all of those stories are collected to one spot. You still have a human in the loop that reviews the stories, makes any adjustments that they need to make before it goes to publication. And by the way, the AIs did all the formatting too. What else do they do that allow you to do it in PDF? And you can actually hear the newsletter if you prefer to hear the newsletter on your drive home. All of that stuff was made by me. I don't know how to code. I don't know how to do any of that stuff, but I know how to talk to an individual. And I think one of the big mind shifts is we're going from creators to curators. And so that's a learning that we have not been practicing for some time because we've been in the seat of creation. So we've been learning to create. Now we need to learn to curate the tools and experiences that we need. And I think that is fundamentally a different experience of learning. If I could just add this, because I think it's important to add, you no longer have to consume data one way. All the learning platforms right now are giving you options in much the same way that I just did with the AI newsletter. Do you want in a hard copy? Do you want it online? Or do you want to listen to it? All platforms of distributing knowledge. And that's just the beginning. I think in the future, I'll have a button that'll say, would you like to listen to this newsletter as a podcast or a song or a poem in Spanish? How would you want this information to be shared with you? And we're entering a phase that's now not just possible at great expense, it's possible at no expense.
Do you wish you could connect with other nonprofit learning and development leaders? I know what it feels like to want someone to bounce ideas off of and to learn from, someone who really understands you and your work. Imagine if you could have a simple way to meet people in the field, ask questions, and share information. That's why I created the Nonprofit Learning and Development Collective, where nonprofit L&D, talent management, and DEI leaders can connect with each other quickly and easily in a virtual space. When you join this community, you will walk away with a new, diverse, and powerful network and a sounding board for your staff development needs. So if you're ready to exchange ideas and collaborate with your peers, come join the Nonprofit L&D Collective. I've been in learning and development for a very long time, and I can remember many, many years ago, translation services for e-learning being a big topic of conversation because e-learning was getting more popular, and how do we make sure that we can offer this in multiple languages? And it was so expensive to try to get translation for e-learning. And this AI really is providing a huge opportunity to provide access to people in new ways that at a fraction of the cost. I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of mind blowing to think about.
I mean, it's absolutely crazy. I'm working on a series of videos to help our board understand the financials of the YMCA. So the script was written by an AI. I went back in and made a few adjustments. It's a script for two podcasters to talk back and forth, and the podcaster voices was completely done on another platform. And the videos that go along or the PowerPoints that go with that was created by another platform, all free up to this point. Everything is free. Then I uploaded them on YouTube, which is also free. And I've sent it out to individuals that are going to give me feedback on some changes. I already got a few changes I need to make. And all I have to do is upload those emails to the first AI who will make the first changes and recast the other two, which will take minutes. Which means, to your example about translation, if you had had a translation, God forbid you made a change to the original. Because now they have to go back and recast the whole thing, and that would take another 3 or 4 weeks. Now it takes seconds. And I'm doing it in our current environment. I think in the near future, everything I just mentioned will be done at one location, and it'll be live. So yeah, we're entering into some pretty remarkable spaces right now.
100%. The time savings and the expense savings are definitely going to be huge. And it makes a huge opportunity for the nonprofit sector in particular when you're looking at those line items really closely. So I am curious, from your perspective as CEO, I know I talk a lot about learning and development. I know you're a proponent of learning and development, but from your perspective as a CEO, where do you see the biggest opportunity for learning leaders to help them use AI well?
Well, I think it starts with just understanding what it is and what it's not. If you're still thinking it's a smarter Alexa, then you're not understanding. It is a very different environment. I think it's best understood as another staff member, like an intern. You can now have the smartest intern you can ever hire, and they're available 24/7. And what the new systems are beginning to do, Claude is doing this, ChatGPT just announced some changes, and Copilot is doing some remarkable work in this space too, is now they're getting hands, eyes, and feet. They're going to be able to do work while you're sleeping, do things that you can't even begin to imagine. There's an AI right now that I can take that same script that I talked about earlier and create an entire video, not PowerPoint slides, videos in any number of formats that I want. And so I think it's important that if you're going to understand what it means for learning, you need to understand what it is doing and then begin to understand how that changes the learning process for you. So what do you now need to know and what do you now need to curate? I have an AI agent, for example, that is trained in finances. So in the past, I needed to learn more about finances, learn more about finances. Now on my drive home or on my drive into work, I pull up Frankie, who sits on the ChatGPT platform, and have a conversation. And I may have uploaded a few financial statements and say, can we talk about these? And by the time I get home, I'm fully versed and ready to go for the finance committee meeting the next day. And I'm not the only one using it. We have another agent named Bailey who understands everything Board Source has ever produced. And I've given Bailey to our board members themselves. And so they'll say to me, hey, I was consulting with Bailey and this is what they say. It said, what do you think? So even their training has changed as I give them tools that they can access to ask questions they didn't even know to ask when we did the training at the very beginning.
Yeah, it certainly changes everything. It changes the way we work in L&D and it changes the way people learn, which then also impacts the way we work in L&D. And so it's a big shift. To your point, I think it starts with the mindset and then kind of thinking through what AI can do for you and what it can't. It's obviously very powerful, but some people still have hesitations, right, with using AI. And some of those hesitations are they're legitimate hesitations, whether it's just, the way the person feels, their beliefs, their values, or things that are actually something to be concerned about in a more factual way, right? So all of those things are legitimate concerns. I heard lots of questions about quality, judgment, security, ethics. When you're thinking about AI, you talked about, uploading your financials and things like that. Obviously, you feel pretty secure with what you're using. What do you feel like nonprofit leaders should be thoughtful about or cautious about when using AI and learning and development?
That's a great question. And it's a great question for a couple of reasons. It goes back to that understanding what it is and what it isn't. When I upload our financials for Frankie to review, I've done several things. Number one, Frankie has been trained not to train the system. So we set it up how to train, just like you would train an employee. When you hand an employee a controller that came to work for you and you give them their financials, in the training, you may have said to that controller, don't share these. This is just for you. Well, you can do that with AIs too. Having said that, I'm not so careless that I'm putting things like social security numbers and bank account numbers on any of these systems. I don't care what they are. I don't know that we're ready for that yet. So I'm willing to share, but I also understand that I got to train the AI. So if you're concerned about values and ethics, train your AIs. The reason I think that they're comparable to staffing, and I made that comment earlier, is because that's what you would do with a staff member. If you hired somebody from Nebraska and they're going to work with inner city kids in Chicago, and they did their training at the University of Nebraska, and they grew up at a farm in Nebraska, and now they're going to be working with kids in the inner city. You train them. You train them with your values, your principles, your code of regulations, code of ethics, and all that stuff. And then if they don't get something right, you make sure that you retrain them. Well, it's the same way here. What I am concerned is that individuals are overly concerned about things they shouldn't be concerned about. When you learn to drive, you learn to drive in your family car. You didn't learn to drive in a NASCAR with all those roll bars and extra safety gear. And I'm afraid that some leaders are treating AI in such a way that they want it to have all the roll bars when they're just going to high school. They're just going to go pick up bread. So don't overcomplicate the simple things. And then the final warning is I mentioned the word curation. I will mention it here. Curation is a real job. I sit on a board of a museum, and I learned the word curation, and I learned that every person at the staff there, they didn't paint any of the paintings or build any of the furnitures, but they have real jobs and they have real tasks related to how we display those work of arts and how they work with each other and what experience it gives to individuals. And so their real knowledge helps them do real work, but somebody else made the painting. The same thing exists here. You need to curate the knowledge that you want to share. You need to train the agents to do what it needs to do. And you should be testing and pressure testing to make sure that they do what they need to do. But what you shouldn't do is be so afraid that you're still walking to high school.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And I think one of the easiest ways, maybe easy is a bias of mine, but one of the easiest ways, in my opinion, that we can start to overcome that and navigate that is by experimenting with it, by practicing, by getting those reps in. So, what is one way that you would recommend leaders start experimenting with AI specifically for learning today?
Well, I'm going to recommend three things, and some of them are related to learning. Watch a video every weekend. Just pick one, go on YouTube and pick something about one of your the platform you're most curious. And if you don't understand it in the first 5 minutes, turn it off, pick something else. But what you'll learn is you'll start picking up some really important information. There's a lot of content creators right now that are building some pretty cool stuff on how to use Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever. And they're all 5, 10, 15 minutes long. Just watch one every weekend. And I would say after about a couple of months, you'll already be the smartest person on AI. Chances are in your network. The other thing is create an agent on one of the platforms. And if you don't know how to do that, maybe that's your first video. Create an agent on one of the platforms on something you're most expert at. And it doesn't have to be work related. If you're an expert in Italian cooking, create an agent to help you create Italian recipes. And in learning to train them, you can also test it to see how accurate it can get your recipes and it could get instructions. And in doing so, you'll understand then how to do that in another platform or in another way. So pick something you're already very familiar with. And then finally, get around people that are early adopters. If you're around people that are very afraid and they talk most about how dangerous this is and what impact it's going to have on the world and how we're all going to be blown up, then you're not going to take the steps. I know I'm not so, again, AI friendly that I don't understand the concerns. They're deep concerns. In fact, I make it a practice for every article that I read or book that I read that's so AI positive, I also pick up an article or a video that gives me warnings. I understand them. And I want to do that so that I understand like that vehicle analogy, where the concerns are, how I need to drive this vehicle in such a way that I get it home safe, that I get the milk safe. And if I decide to get in the Lamborghini, this would be the Claudes, that I understand what the concerns need to be there too. I think this is a major shift in our environment. You started the podcast that way. I think CEOs need to lean in because nothing is going to shape our world, let alone our work, than what we're experiencing today. This is not even close to comparing the smartphone or the internet. This is more, a lot more.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better myself, Jorge. I am so glad that you joined me today for this episode. I just know people are walking away thinking differently about AI and how it impacts their role, how it's going to impact the nonprofit sector, what opportunities there are. So thank you. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sharing what you're doing, what your perspective is as you've learned and practiced with AI. I just, like I said, I know it's going to benefit so many people. So I appreciate your time today.
Heather, thank you for leaning in and for bringing this topic forward. I think it's really, really critical.
Thank you, Jorge.
Bye-bye.
So much good insight from Jorge today. I actually really love the three ways he said to get started. Watch a video every weekend about whatever your AI tool is. Create an agent on some area of expertise that you already hold, and then get around people who are also adopting AI. That's actually kind of a perfect learning strategy if you think about it. You're learning something new from the video, you're applying it as you create the agent, and then you're surrounding yourself with community, with people who can help you, encourage you, troubleshoot with you, and just help make sure that behavior change sticks. So he actually described the perfect little learning strategy. And I just, as a learning and development person, really appreciate that. So hopefully you are walking away today with some new ideas and a plan to continue your learning as well. Again, if you're still wondering about AI and what's right for you and your organization, we do have a tools and tech day in our Learning for Good Summit coming up, Leading Learning That Sticks. And so highly recommend that you check that out. Find the registration link in the show notes and join us for that. And until then, I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.
Hey friend, was this episode helpful for you? Did you like what you heard? Do you want more content like this? Here are 3 things you can do. Hit subscribe. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice. Share this episode with a colleague. This means so much to me personally. I read every review, but it also helps me learn what content you like most so I can create more of what you want. All right, turn that Teams or Slack chat back on when you're ready, and I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.